What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Where Is. I hope everyone is having an amazing day. Of course, I have another case for you guys, and that is the mysterious disappearance of Shikemia Pate, who disappeared from her small town when she was just 8 years old. So, without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So, the year was 1998. And Shikemia Pate was a third grade student living in Unadilla, Georgia, which is a small city located in Dooley County, Georgia, with a population of only 1,620 during the 1990s. Now, Shikemia, whose nickname is Shy Shy, got the part of her name Kemia from the word leukemia while her mother was still pregnant with her. She actually saw the word on the side of a coin donation box one day that was for leukemia research, and her mother thought it sounded pretty, so she named her Shikemia. So it was September again in 1998, and she had just started her third grade year at Unadilla Elementary School, and her ninth grade birthday was just a few weeks away. Now, growing up, she was sick quite often. She had severe asthma along with having an underdeveloped kidney that she had since birth. She had a displaced kneecap, which required her to wear a leg brace, and she also had a weak bladder, which required her to wear pull-ups to stop her from having to go to the restroom every 10 minutes. Now, her asthma was so severe, she needed breathing treatments done several times throughout the day, but none of this stopped her from being a happy kid full of energy. She loved to play and ride her bike and would always come back in the house dirty from playing outside. She was a part of the choir at church and even promised her aunt that she would sing at her wedding one day. She was also very smart and got good grades in school. Now, she has an older sister whose name is LaSwanda. Now, LaSwanda was a senior in high school at the time, and she was also a part of the ROTC and performed in the Color Guard. Now, with it being September, of course, this was football season, and football was a pretty big deal in the town of Unadilla. Everyone pretty much came out and attended the high school football games. So it was Friday morning on September 4th, and Shikemia, who normally walked to and from school since her elementary school was very close to her home, but that morning she told her mother that she didn't feel like walking to school that day. According to her mother, she had just gotten out of the hospital that Tuesday prior. Again, we know that she did have some medical conditions, so her mother says that she carried her on her hip to school and then she dropped her off. After school, she walked home with a friend around 3:30 that afternoon, and then her sister LaSwanda came by her friend's house and picked her up, and then she took her home. Now, once she gets home, she changes into a neon green button-down Atlanta Braves jersey, some Levi jeans, and white K-Swiss sneakers because she was planning on attending the high school football game, and her sister LaSwanda was going to take her since she would be performing that night at the game with the Color Guard. So on the evening of September 4th, LaSwanda was getting ready for the home football game, and Shikemia went outside and walked to a friend's house before the game while her sister was getting ready. Again, they lived in a small neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. All the kids played outside together. However, it wasn't the nicest area, there was drug activity going on the streets. However, no one in the neighborhood really considered it unsafe for kids, and there was never any reports of a child ever going missing. So once her sister had finished getting ready for the game, she leaves the house, and as she's driving down the street, she sees Shikemia sitting on the porch at a friend's house, so She decides to go ahead and go get some gas, and then she said that she would head back up towards the neighborhood to pick her up. Now, her sister reports that someone told her that Shakimia had actually walked back up the street towards their house because apparently she did see her sister drive by. However, she thought that her sister had left. So her sister drives back up the street towards their home, but she did not see Shakimia anywhere. So she looked around the neighborhood for a bit for her sister before heading to the game. She assumed that she most likely was still playing at a friend's house or left for the game with a family friend. So LaSwanda called their mother, who was at the beauty shop at the time, and she told her what was going on and that she needed to get to the game because, again, she was supposed to perform with the color guard and needed to be there early. Now, at first, her family didn't panic and they did believe that she was probably still playing outside at a friend's house. So her mother called a friend that lived in the neighborhood and she just asked her if she would just keep an eye out for her and that she would take her to the game when she got home. So neighbors began looking around the neighborhood for her, but no one was ever able to locate her. Now, again, it was Friday evening, and unfortunately, most of her neighbors were already out heading to the football game. Now, it wasn't until that night when her sister got back home from the game before her family began to panic because Shakimia was not with her sister when she got there, and no friends or neighbors had called their mother telling her that they took Shakimia with them to the game. So her family goes out to look for her, and her mother calls around to some friends to see if she could possibly have gone over to their home, but no one had seen her except for one of her mother's friends did say that they did see her and that they offered to take her to the game. However, they said that Shakimia told them that she wasn't going to the game and that she was going home, and her mother's friend says that she wishes that she would have just taken her, and this is when her mother called the police. Now, it's strange that her mother's friend did tell her that Shakimia said that she wasn't going to the game because we do know that Shakimia was indeed planning on going to the football game that night. Now, this is where my frustration comes in with this case. Again, her mother reported her missing, and according to her mother, Veronica, she says that the Unadilla Police Department told her that her daughter had to be gone for 24 hours before she could even be considered missing. Now, I don't know how anyone could look into a mother's eyes and tell them that they had to wait before anything could be done to help find their child. And when the Dooley County Sheriff's Department found out that the police department told them this information, they were pretty upset, and as they should be, because there is no rule that stated that her family had to wait 24 hours before reporting her missing. But it is reported that the officer who told her mother this information was a young officer, so was he just not aware of this information? I'm not really sure, but I do find it still very frustrating that he told her mother this information. Now, since they were losing precious time, her family, as well as neighbors and friends in the community, went out and conducted their own search for her, but it was difficult considering it was dark outside by this time. Now, the sheriff's department didn't even know that Shakimia was missing until later that following morning, which, as we all know, means that they lost so much time in her case because the first 48 hours is definitely the most important when someone goes missing. Now, luckily, the Dooley County Sheriff's Department was committed to finding Shakimia, and investigator Randy Lambert launched the investigation for her disappearance. So during the investigation, investigators used the club, which was called Roxy's, that was located right across the street from her home as their headquarters, and for 2.5 months, according to investigator Randy, They completely turned the neighborhood upside down looking for Shikemia. They were even receiving help from known drug dealers in the area to find her. They also conducted air searches with the Georgia State Patrol Aviation Unit. They had the fire department doing ground searches. Cadaver dogs that they had searched the surrounding area for weeks, according to investigator Randy. But unfortunately, since her family and people in the community pretty much had to go out and look for her on their own for the first hours of her being missing, the cadaver dogs were unable to pick up her scent due to there being so many people from the community searching the area. Any remains of her scent, the dogs were unable to track. So search crews spent months searching for her. Residents of the neighborhood were interviewed to see if a timeline could be put together for her last whereabouts and who last saw her. Investigators also conducted a search of all of the homes in the neighborhood within a 5-block radius, as well as following up on tips that they received over the years. However, unfortunately, the case began to grow cold. Now, there were a few persons of interest, according to investigator Randy, but unfortunately, they just didn't have enough information on either person of interest. Now, in 2012, police did receive a tip from someone who saw a girl on Facebook who resembled Shikemia. So they called the police, and a sketch artist took a look at the photos of the girl, and they didn't believe that this was her, but it still quite possibly could have been her. So police did follow up on this tip, and they actually went to Michigan, but unfortunately, the girl in the photos did not turn out to be her. But it turns out that it was actually her cousin, which obviously explains why the person who called the police thought it was her due to their resemblance. Now, investigators continued receiving tips throughout the years, but unfortunately, her case again began to grow cold, and to this day, Shikemia's disappearance still remains a mystery. Now, that is everything as far as her case, so let's go ahead and discuss the theories. Now, the first theory, which I'm not too sure about, is that she could have possibly wandered off somewhere while she was playing outside and then had a medical emergency. Maybe she had fallen somewhere or had an asthma attack. Now, I'm not too sure of the terrain in this area. I don't know if there were wooded areas around, but I just don't see her running off right before the game, especially running off alone. I mean, there were other kids in the neighborhood, so if she did in fact run off, I feel like one of her friends would have been with her. Also, again, if she did run off, I don't think that she would have gone far, considering she did wear a leg brace, and we know that her mother had to carry her to school that morning, so I doubt that she would have just ran off somewhere. Again, I'm not too sure about this theory, but I did just want to put it out there for you guys. Now, another theory is that her neighbor at the time, whose name is Quentin Kendrick, who went by Droopy, is responsible for her disappearance. Now, Droopy lived only 300 yards away from Shikemia and was charged with several counts of sexual assault against minors back in 2001. Now, police did end up searching his home, but they were unable to find anything, and he was ruled out as a suspect. So the last theory, and the one that I believe the most, as well as investigators, is that she knew whoever took her. Now, we know that this was a close-knit community, so could someone that she trusted came up to her that afternoon and told her that they would take her to the game, and then they ended up abducting her? I mean, there was never a report of a struggle that was seen. There was never a report of someone being heard screaming for help. And it is reported that Shikemia was street smart, so I'm sure she wouldn't just go willingly with a stranger, and if it was someone who wasn't from the area, they would most likely stick out because, again, Unadilla is a very small town where everyone knows everyone. Now, over the years, her family has organized a 5K walk. They have sold t shirts to raise awareness for Shakimia's case and to raise money for the Rock One Sock Missing Children campaign. Her sister says that she thinks about it every day and just wishes that she would have just told her to come on with her before she got gas. Her mother says, I miss her and I love her and I'm waiting on her to return home. Now, her mother has since moved, but her family says that they will welcome her back with open arms and show her that they still love her. If you have any information, you can contact the Dooley County Sheriff's Department at 229-645-0930. Again, Shakimia went missing from Unadilla, Georgia when she was 8 years old. She was last seen on the corner of Crumpler Avenue and North Avenue at around 7 p.m. She is African American with black hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a neon green button-down Atlanta Braves jersey with red lettering, Levi jeans, and white K-Swiss sneakers, along with her leg brace. Her hair was braided at the time and was twirled in the front with gold beads. If alive, she would be 32 years old, and there are also a few age progression photos of her as well. Again, if you have any information, please speak up so that we can bring some answers and some peace to her family. Well, that is it for me today, you guys. As always, please stay safe and I will see you in the next one.